Do your due diligence first. Know why you want to make that second act, what is not working in your current act, and making sure that that's not going to be an issue in this next part of your life. Know what you're going into, that it's something you're passionate about, and it's not just a temporary feeling. Do your due diligence. Think about it. Make sure you know what the risks are and you're comfortable with those risks, and you have a backup plan just in case it doesn't work out.
Hey there, fans of the Second Act Success podcast. This is Bernie Borges. I'm the host of the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. On this podcast, I feature people who share a BF to AF story. This is where each week's guest shares a part of their midlife journey, as early as their 30s, where they share a before fulfillment story, that's BF, and their after fulfillment story, that's AF. Check out episode 20, where Adam shares his 3-year overnight success and then his 7-year overnight success, where he achieved his fulfillment by helping other podcasters realize their dreams. And now it's time to bring out your talented host of the Second Act Success podcast and my friend, Shannon Russell.
Are you at a crossroads in your career or in life? Well, don't worry, because life's next chapter is waiting. This is the Second Act Success podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Russell. I'm a television producer, turned boy mom, turned business owner, podcaster, and career coach. If you are looking to start a new career or begin a fresh chapter in life, then get ready to be inspired with stories of women who have done just that. We will share advice and offer steps you can take to help figure out what your true calling in life really is. It is time to shine, so let's turn the page and get started. Welcome to Second Act Success. Patricia DiMaria Shaffer had a long career at one of the country's top accounting firms, but the hours left her struggling to raise her son the way she wanted to as a single mom. Tricia took a leap of faith and began a new career as a recruiter at a staffing company. She found her calling and could not be happier. In this episode, Tricia tells her story. Plus, she shares her expertise on how recruiting is yet another way to find a job that truly fits you. Let's get started. Hello, Patricia DiMaria. It's so good to see you and have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm so excited for this.
You and I went to college together. We were sorority sisters, and it's so nice to catch up and have you share your Second Act success story. Obviously, I know that you went to Elon College because we were there at the same time. After you left Elon, where did you start out in the working world?
So I graduated with an accounting degree. After college, I moved to Winston-Salem, where I worked for a CPA firm. What we did was audit, tax, compilations, the whole gamut. And that's where I really learned how to be a professional. I actually still keep in touch with some of my bosses from that time. And as I'm even training or mentoring some of people today, I think back on some of the conversations I had as a first and second year staff in that CPA firm. I think the experience you get early on stays with you throughout your whole life. I was with that firm for about 2 years. Then I relocated to Connecticut, which is when I started with Deloitte, which is one of the big 4 accounting firms. I started in their audit group. It was mostly commercial businesses. I think I had some financial services. Then after about 8 months, I actually was transferred back down to North Carolina, which was wonderful because I really love that area. And then had a child and then relocated to Northern Virginia. I was a manager at this point. My career was wonderful. I had a good balance at the time, working on my audits. Things were great. I got an opportunity to work on the Fannie Mae restatement, which was one of the biggest restatements kind of in the history of accounting, very large. And the demand was quite insane. Actually, there were times where I was working over 100 hours, and that was probably the hardest time of my life. I went through a divorce and purchased a house. So that was a very stressful time in my life, but it also was one of the most rewarding times as well.
That's great that you were able to take a difficult time and a stressful time and really come out on the other side. Let's talk about the Fannie Mae restatement. So how was that project?
Career-wise, it was fantastic. What I learned and the things I was exposed to, the people I worked with, it truly was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The biggest challenge I had at the time was just trying to manage being a mom, and not only just a mom, being a single mom at that time. There were so many Saturdays where my son would come into the office and everyone was so wonderful about it. I felt terrible because here I am. It's a Saturday. I've got my son here, but he's coloring. He's got snacks. He was just having a good old time. But that was definitely not the type of mom that I wanted to be. But I also didn't think I had any other options. Deloitte, they took care of me. They took care of me during, moves. They gave me 9 months off during my pregnancy. Financially, I was able to support my son and myself. We bought the house. It was definitely a give and take relationship. I was afraid to leave because what I had was actually pretty good. And I loved what I did. I loved the technical, challenges and just working as a team. And even though the deadlines were quite insane and you worked around the clock, like you worked together. And the bonds that you made with each other, like they lasted even today. Some of my best girlfriends were, from people that I worked with at Deloitte. So we got through that process though. We restated, things were wonderful, but I definitely needed a better work-life balance. So I met with my partners who were absolutely incredible and always supportive of everything that I was doing. I was transferred over to the federal practice with the anticipation that was just going to be less hours, better work-life balance, and all of that. And I think overall it could have been, but the challenge that I personally had was that I wasn't going to leave my team. If they're working late, how can I leave them? I mean, I wasn't going to be that manager. And I had at times teams of 30 people reporting to me. And I wasn't going to be that senior manager that said, okay, you guys have a good night. I'm going to go home. That just didn't feel right to me. So we tried, different schedules. And again, I enjoyed what I was doing. It made that even harder to make a change because I really did like what I was doing. I had such a connection with my clients. And I knew that what I was doing, especially as it related to the federal practice, like that's the government. And what I was doing was truly, I felt, it was my way of giving back to our country and to our government. And yes, I know it's accounting and auditing and all that stuff, but it was just my way of saying, okay, I'm actually contributing to our country right now.
The fact that you enjoyed what you were doing so much means so much. And not a lot of people can say that they truly enjoy their work and they enjoy their people that they work with. So were you struggling to find something new because you were a single mom with your son, or were there other reasons to it?
The real reason was trying to be a better mom. I mean, I was not comfortable leaving him for as long as I was. There was a week where I went to Disney with my parents and my son, and my dad at one point actually hid my BlackBerry because I kept checking my emails throughout the day. I had to. I didn't have an option. It wasn't my choice to say, I want to be on my BlackBerry today, but that was the expectation of, okay, you can take this vacation. However, you need to be accessible. You need to be with your clients. You need to answer these questions. So one day he literally hit it, and that did not go over well. My dad really, when I look back as a child, he was always there and he worked so hard. There were times he worked 3 different jobs. I don't remember that. I just remember him always being there. And he knew that I needed to be there for my son. There was another part of that week when we were actually in the Magic Kingdom, and I planned a conference call during my son's nap time. And I know a lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that is not the kind of mom that I wanted to be, especially when I was the only parent. It wasn't as if you have a parent that works so hard and the other parent's at home, and there's a balance. Like having a balance is wonderful. Unfortunately, my son didn't have that. He had me, who was doing everything that I could to be able to support the two of us. Overall, I was with Deloitte for 10 years, and it was definitely time to make a change. So what I did is I met with a recruiter, and during my first interview with him, we're going through my background and he's asking me what I like about my job, what my strengths are. And he picked up on the fact that what I loved most was the people. So there were a lot of opportunities at Deloitte to mentor younger staff, to do training, to be involved in the women's initiative and recruiting at colleges, all the fun stuff. I was very involved in a lot of things. And he picked up on that. That's what got me out of bed in the morning. It wasn't a financial statement. It was, all right, I've got a team today and I need to be there for them. So one time somebody was relocating to Richmond and it was, okay, let me help you. Let me put you in contact with that person. When there were teams that just didn't have great morale, that's when some of the partners would say, you know what, let's put Trisha on that team and let's see what she could do to, motivate them and get them on board and excited again to do the work. And so he asked me, he kind of sat back and said, what are you doing with your life? Have you ever considered being a recruiter? And I looked at him and said, no, what are you talking about? I'm not a recruiter. I'm a senior manager at Deloitte. So please go find me my new job. And I thought I thought he was nuts, but we had a good conversation because I asked him, why would you say that? I've worked so hard. I've been on these very complicated audits and I'm pretty smart. And that's when he explained what he was picking up in the conversation with me. And I hadn't thought about it, but maybe that is something I need to think about. And I did. But at the time, it just wasn't right. I was so afraid of taking that risk because it's a different compensation structure. It's something that I've never done before. And I couldn't take a risk like that. So he did place me at a company that I was excited to join. But over the course of that year I was with that firm, prior colleagues from Deloitte would reach out to me and say, hey, Trish, I'm looking to leave. Do you think you could help me find, another opportunity? So I would send their resume to Pete. And I would actually see postings online. And I'd say, hey, I know you're working with Eric on his job search. This might be a great opportunity for him. After months, Pete says, like, you're doing my job. I finally said, okay, let's seriously talk about it then, because while the hours were better, I was still working over 60 hours. It still wasn't being able to be the mom that I wanted to be. So we met and I said, prove to me how I could make the same amount of money, how I could control my schedule, help me understand this. And he did. And I said, okay, let's try it. But I made him promise that if it did not work out, he would help me find another job because I could not be unemployed.
I just think it's interesting that you were thinking about leaving your firm to possibly work at a recruitment agency. And if it didn't work out, you had someone obviously at the recruitment agency to find you another job. So kind of you're in a really safe place if you think about it.
He was my safety net. Yes.
What did your son say? How old is he at this time? And was he like, Mom, I don't know about this?
I left accounting completely to go into recruiting. That was the summer between his second and third grade. He wanted me home more. I don't know how much he understood, at the time. He knew that there was a change, but I told him that it was a good change and I'm going to be working less and I'm going to be home more. He was ecstatic about it. The challenge that I had at the time, not today, but at the time, was my family, because they're wondering, what in the world am I doing, right? Why am I giving up this phenomenal career that I went to school for? The CPA exam is not an easy exam to pass. I'm able to be a single mom where, looking back, I was really fortunate about that. I think there's so many women that have stayed in marriages because they can't do it on their own, or they don't think they can do it on their own, right? And so at that time, I think my family and some of my close friends were just concerned that, what was I doing? Why am I giving everything up when I have it pretty good? But today, my parents are the most supportive people in the entire world. And, I think looking back and being a mom of a almost 19-year-old, I could see why they were concerned. This is a terrible risk, but now they see that I was able to be extremely successful. over the last 11 years and was able to be the mom that I wanted to be. But that, I would say that was the hardest piece, knowing that I was making this change and I didn't have their full support. Again, at that time.
Like you said, you would have probably felt the same way in their position,
Yeah.
so you can understand.
Yeah.
You seem like such a confident person and so successful in the career that you had in accounting. Did you feel like, hey, I can do anything if I put my mind to it? I've proven that at Deloitte. I'm just going to go all in. I'm going to try this and just keep my fingers crossed.
Yes, completely. I also didn't have an option. I had to put everything into it. Like, this was my livelihood. It's my son's livelihood. Like, I have to do everything I can to make this successful. Once I went into staffing, the hours were very manageable, very flexible. But in the beginning, you're building a business, you're building your network. So yes, I was spending nights researching and learning about different companies and different industries and all these different things that I've never had to do before. And there's also a sales aspect to this. So, okay, now I need to learn sales. I need to learn how to be a recruiter. What do I ask? How do I find these people? So you have to put in all this work in the beginning, but I didn't think about it like work. It was more so an investment of, okay, I'm investing in myself and I'm investing in this business. And you just do what you need to do to make it happen. I remember it was in my first year of staffing, and it was the weekend. And Martin asked, why haven't I been to the new office yet? I said, well, you don't need to. I'm not working weekends anymore. And what I was doing on the weekends, I was able to do from home. And at one point, he felt like he disappointed me. He's like, I promise I'll be good. I'm like, no, my gosh, no, it's not that. Like, I'm home. Like, this is our life now. I'm not going into the office on Saturdays. It's not you. And I appreciated everything you did over the years, but no, that's just not what we're doing anymore.
He probably enjoyed it. Trisha, he enjoyed going in to work with you. That's so adorable.
But it's sad also that, he had to think like that.
Martin, we can do anything that you'd like over the weekend.
Exactly. Like a normal child, a normal family.
With those weekends more free, or just that flexibility, were you starting to drop your shoulders, breathe a little bit easier?
Yeah. I mean, and it truly then revolved around him and his activities. He played soccer, he did flag football, he did taekwondo. He's actually a 2nd degree black belt. I was just involved in whatever he was involved in. So when it came to Cub Scouts, I was the PAC committee chair. In elementary school, all of his classes, I was the room parent for the majority of those years. If somebody needed a volunteer at the school to help with, teacher appreciation week, and they needed cupcakes or whatever it was, I'm like, yeah, that's me. So the idea of getting into staffing and making this transition was to be a mom that was involved and present and all of that. But that was 11 years ago, and it turned out to be one of the best career choices I could have made. The reasons were for my son and to be the mom, but it has been the most rewarding career than I could have even imagined having. So it worked out in that aspect.
Trisha, tell me exactly what a recruiter does. Tell me about your day-to-day.
My day-to-day is different every day. What I do is solely accounting and finance placements. I think that's the only type of staffing I would ever do, because that's what I've done. Like, I was an accountant, so I was a candidate. And I worked with recruiters that weren't the best recruiters. So I know what not to do with candidates. But what's important about the accounting and finance piece is that when I'm interviewing a candidate, I can really dig in to know if they know what they're talking about or not. And from the client side, I'm able to guide them in what they really do need in their organization. But what staffing is overall, we run a full desk, which is recruiting as well as business development. And there are some staffing firms that have that separate, where you are solely a recruiter or you are solely working on business development. But we run a full desk, which means you do it all. Clients, hiring managers will come to us. They'll hire us to provide them with staffing support. And part of that is meeting with them, understanding the current organization, where is the gap, what do you need, what are your struggles, and then us providing those individuals to them. And that could be anywhere from a controller, an accounting manager, a VP of finance, but it's essentially finding the support, the staffing support for our clients. Today, there is a shortage of candidates. There's so many job openings right now and not enough people to fill those jobs. Like there's just not enough people in the job market to fill these open positions. A year ago, 2 years ago, especially soon after COVID hit, you had a tremendous amount of unemployed individuals that were looking for new opportunities. Companies were not hiring. So there's always this wave of what's in demand. And the key in staffing is to just understand your market and be able to adapt to it, which is why I think that full cycle, like full desk model is going to work well, because you have to be able to know all aspects of the job based on the way the market dictates. We see where the matches are. So with our candidates, we meet with them individually, 45 minutes, sometimes up to an hour, really diving into their background, because their resume may not show exactly who they are. Like, we want to know what your strengths are, what your accomplishments are, like who you are as a person, and also what motivates you. On paper, this particular, controller may be perfect for this organization, but it may not be what is in their goals. That might not be anything of what they're looking for long term, which is why it's important to get to know your candidates. At the same time, with the hiring managers, they may have a job description, but that job description might not be what they're looking for. Okay, help me understand what's going on in the company. Is somebody going to be leaving in a couple of months? Are you going through an acquisition, or whatever the situation is? Help me understand that, because then that's how I could find the right person for you. Once we do think, okay, I have this candidate for this client, I think it's a great match, then we also monitor the whole interview process. We kind of negotiate on our candidate's behalf. We conduct references, and there's a lot of other details to that whole entire process. The key also is just listening, right? It's like Pete, for example. I was telling him what I was looking for in my job, but he was really hearing what I was telling him, and that I wanted to help people. And I am all about relationships and getting people in the right place and listening and guiding and all that stuff. It's really understanding, it's getting to know your candidate, getting to know your client, and truly making the right matches. Part of our job is to advise them. They may think they want to, I'm looking for a controller position, and they may only have 3 years of experience. So it's helping them understand, okay, let's talk about that. Or they may want, all this money, and it's just guiding them to say, okay, that would be wonderful, but this is what the market is bearing right now. This is what your experience is, and I'm going to help you get what you are looking for, but we also need to be reasonable. My clients have told me over the last several years is one of the reasons they come to me is because I am honest with them, and I will tell them the bad news, and I will give it to them straight, and I'll tell them when they're being realistic. I'm not going to have empty promises that, yeah, I could deliver those candidates to you, and not. So the job itself is, yes, you're looking at resumes, and yes, you're looking at job descriptions, but that is just the tiniest piece of what the job is day to day.
It sounds to me like a recruiter is almost a therapist in the career and in the job market, right? Like you are listening to both sides, you're negotiating both sides, you're trying to get the person to be their happiest.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
I can see why Pete, your recruiter that recruited you, I can see why he chose you and why he saw this in you, because now I'm seeing it too. I'm the therapist in this situation. I'm seeing that at Deloitte and at your prior jobs, and it was all about the people and the teams and then getting involved and helping. And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah, it is. It's so rewarding. There's one individual that I've worked with since maybe 2015. And he was just at a very low point in his life and his career. He had lost his job and it was just not a good time. He was living actually in another state. Now, today, relocation and remote, it's very common. But back then, I mean, it was only 8 years ago, but it still wasn't as common as it is today. So I'm speaking with him. He's in Texas. I'm here in Northern Virginia. I don't know if I could help this guy, but let me tell you, I have to listen to him. I have to support him. He needs hope at this moment. We went through his background. We went through everything. I did everything I could to help this man find a job. And I actually found him an amazing opportunity up here in Northern Virginia. He relocated his family up here, and he and I are still in contact today. Like we've become friends. I consider him a friend. You meet such amazing people in this business. In fact, another story, over the years, I've done work in Thailand. My son and I have volunteered at an orphanage out there. And people ask me, well, how did you get involved in that? I never thought about it until I really I'm like, how did I meet this individual? And what had happened, I want to say this was back in 2012, maybe 2013. Early on in my staffing career, I was interviewing somebody, phenomenal, smart consultant, and she had a twin sister. And for some reason, I just connected with this individual. We had a wonderful conversation, obviously about her career, but then it went into, personal conversations as well. And she said, you need to meet my twin sister. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
She's also an accountant as well. So I met her. Not really sure what the purpose of the meeting was going to be. If it's about, I think you guys are going to be friends. Who knows? But, I'm all about meeting people and building my network. So I met this individual for lunch. And in this conversation, she was telling me about this nonprofit that she had started. And this nonprofit that she started in the U.S. is affiliated with this work that she does in Thailand. And I said, well, that's definitely something I need to be involved in. And I've become just the closest of friends with these two individuals. And it all came from an interview. And from that, Martin and I have gone to Thailand, just his experience to this and seeing what other kids have gone through and what their lifestyles are has been just completely eye-opening. But it all comes down to just getting to know your candidate. So yes, it is a very therapeutic process as we're dealing with candidates. That has been the most rewarding part of the job. I didn't think that it would affect me the way it has when I went into staffing. I had no idea that it would be this incredible career that would just change my life completely.
It's not just matching people to a job, filling the spot and moving on. You really are forming those relationships. And that is what you love to do. So that's why you are so good at it. I can just tell that this is something that feeds your heart and you feel like you're putting out more good into the world. You might have felt like you were doing your part to give back working in accounting at Deloitte, but now you're doing it in a different way to individuals.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's quite interesting that you were working in accounting and now you're doing recruiting for accounting. So you're still taking all that knowledge that you worked so hard for, that you went to school for, because who better to recruit people for accounting firms than someone who was in one herself?
I am such a specialist in it. And what's interesting is everyone in our firm was once an accountant at some point in time.
Have you ever helped your former colleagues in finding a new place of business through staffing, through your recruiting agency?
Yes, I have. Several of them, as a matter of fact, which has been wonderful. Growing up in Deloitte, I worked my way up to a senior manager, and I managed and counseled a lot of younger individuals. And I've placed a number of these individuals in pretty good roles. And it's been such an honor to actually see them grow in those roles as well. Because it's like, okay, I had a little help in their accounting knowledge earlier on when they were still, young enough in Deloitte. But now I've also helped them into these amazing positions as true professionals in the world. Those relationships, they stay, and you always will remember those individuals when you need to.
It's all about networking, right? Because now you need that really big Rolodex of people to know who to go to.
Exactly. I am with Lion Search Group. I've been with them for almost a year. It was founded by one of the partners is my original recruiter, Pete. So it has all come full circle. We worked at the firm together years ago, and then he relocated to New York, and then he started this firm with two other individuals. And then a year ago, he thought about reaching out to me, and it was just the perfect time. So our firm is based in New York. And what I am going to be doing is growing the DC market area. So now that my son has completed his first year of college, I'm at a point where I could really refocus on my career and spend as much time as I need to it. So that's sort of what I'm going to be doing with them.
What a wonderful undertaking, having the whole DC area. Wow.
It's scary to think about, but now's the time that I'm ready to do something like this. And what I love most is, I've known Pete since 2010. His partners are just as amazing as he is. And so I know that I'm surrounded by the three most ethical individuals. So this firm truly is based on high morals, honesty, doing the right thing, just treating each other with respect and doing the right thing for each other, for our clients, and just being a true team. I'm really proud to work here and to say that I work with these guys.
You're in a good place. You sacrificed a lot over the years, and now your son's in a great place being in college, and you get to focus back on Trisha and what you want to do.
Thank you. It's taken a while. I think it was all meant to be. There are times where I do miss that deadline to get the financial reports together or the audit sign off. And, I miss that. But ultimately, I don't think I would change anything. I look at my son. Granted, he's still a teenager and does silly things at times and is definitely not perfect, but he's turned out to be a really good human being. And I'm really proud of him. And I don't think I could have raised him the way that I wanted to if I did anything differently. I really don't.
You talked a little bit about during COVID, how there was just that flux of more people looking for jobs and not so many jobs available, and how your market kind of ebbs and flows. What are some of the job trends that you're seeing currently?
Currently, there is a high demand for, I'm going to say, anyone with accounting or finance degree up to 10, even 12 years of experience. That seems to be the hottest in demand right now. And it fluctuates. Like a couple months ago, there were so many organizations that needed FP&A individuals, which is financial planning and analysis. But today, we're working on several accounting manager positions. So there's always going to be kind of fluctuations with that. But the biggest challenge with candidates right now and just with clients is, you had COVID where people were working remote, and prior to that, you had that flexibility. You were able to work, a day from home and you had flexibility with your hours and things like that. But once COVID hit, schools were shut down. Moms are now at home working and they're trying to manage all of that. And so there's still a lot of individuals that just don't want to go back into the office. But we're at a point where companies want you back into the office. Even if it's a hybrid schedule, 3 days a week or whatever it may be, that seems to be one of the reasons that, these people are such high in demand, because individuals are resigning from their current companies if they are being required to go back into the office. They think they could find something remote. And while they could, and there are organizations that do fully remote, for the most part, they do want individuals back into the office. And that's really been one of the biggest issues that we're having. Also, there's less people looking for new jobs. One of the biggest reasons people look for a new job is because of the commute. And you've been working from home for so long, you've got used to not having a commute. So even if you have to go into the office 2 days a week, that's manageable. Anybody could do anything for 2 days a week. So people aren't looking to leave their jobs because they're fine with a commute 2 days a week. So you have less people in the market because of that as well. And also, there's a lot of people that are still, again, working from home most of the time, where another reason people leave their jobs is the culture. They don't like being around certain individuals. The culture is not a good fit for them. But if you're working from home half of the time, you feel better about the culture as well. You're not seeing it every day. So it's not right in your face and asking you, okay, do I really want to be here day in and day out? So again, that's another reason there's less people in the workforce or in the job market. I also think a lot of people have just decided to do their own thing. Whether it's an individual had a side gig, maybe that person wants to make that side gig a little more of a full-time gig because they could control that more and they have better flexibility and they're at home and they could do it as they see fit. COVID has changed the whole dynamic as it comes to just corporate work right now.
If someone comes to you and says, I need to start a second act, I need to change, I don't want to work in my current career anymore, what advice would you give them?
Absolutely say to go for it. That's for sure. But I would say to them to do your due diligence first. Know why you want to make that second act, like what is not working in your current act, and making sure that that's not going to be an issue in this next part of your life, and know what you're going into, that it's something you're passionate about. And it's not just a temporary feeling of, okay, yeah, but let me try this. Like, do your due diligence. Think about it. Make sure you know what the risks are and you're comfortable with those risks and you have a backup plan just in case it doesn't work out. I would absolutely support anyone making a change if it's right for them or for their family or, for their career.
Would you suggest going in to speak with a recruiter about options and kind of talk it out?
I don't know if I would be qualified to help somebody with that. If it's an accounting and finance person, I could help guide them with options. So if you are a public accountant person and they say, I don't know what I want to do, I want out of public accounting, then I could advise, okay, well, you could do financial reporting, internal audit, analysis, or whatever it is. But if it's a complete change of career, then I would refer them more to a life coach than a recruiter.
There are other recruitment agencies that focus in different fields, right? You had mentioned there's some that specialize in IT fields, some that specialize in engineering, maybe some that specialize in creative.
Absolutely. So I focus on accounting and finance, but there are so many other recruiting firms that specialize in other things. If someone's into marketing and they want to make a change in the marketing field, or legal, if they're an attorney and they want to consider doing something else, there are firms that specialize in general counsel and legal, human resources. There's organizations that also focus purely on HR roles and IT and engineering. Every firm does have kind of their own specialty. So I would say seek out a recruiter that specializes in those areas.
Excellent advice. That's a great opportunity that a lot of people might not think about. So that could be a really helpful resource. What is it that you're learning that candidates of today are looking for? Maybe not in the actual job, but just what are they wanting to get out of a happier career, happier position?
I think it's flexibility. The last couple of years with COVID, I think that's become more important for individuals, and that means something different to every person. So if I'm on the phone with someone and I ask them, what's important? They'll say flexibility. Okay, what does that mean? Because flexibility truly means something different to different people. Maybe it means they don't want to have the commute. Maybe it means they want to work from home 2 days a week. Maybe it means they need 2 hours in the day so they can go volunteer at their son's art class or whatever it is. So it's flexibility that seems to be the most important aspect of what people are looking for right now.
We're always hearing no one wants to work since COVID came. Someone who is constantly talking to corporations and candidates, do you agree?
I don't agree. I don't. Yes, I am sure that there are some individuals that don't want to work, but no, for the most part, people, they do want to work. They want to work on their own terms. They want to control their hours. They want to control where they work, what they're doing, what their job responsibilities are. They want to have more control and say over that, but they definitely want to work. Just this past week, I interviewed several individuals that have been working remote, and they're tired of working remote. They want to get back into the office. So you have those individuals as well. What we hear on the news, I don't know where they're getting that data or what they're looking at. But when it comes to accounting and finance people, they definitely want to work.
Right. You're in the trenches. You're there talking to them. So there are jobs to be had.
There's definitely jobs to be had. And there are people that are out there. Priorities have changed in their family and in their home life that they're just not going to put up with certain things. During COVID, we've just all kind of reevaluated what's important in life. And I think it's just not doing what makes you uncomfortable anymore. I think a lot of people have gone on their own and started their own businesses and things like that. But to me, that doesn't mean they don't want to work. It just means they want to work on their terms and they want to do what they're passionate about and excited about. And they're not going to just settle for a job like people used to settle for. I think that's the difference in today's world versus a couple years ago.
It's more than a job. It's a lifestyle. It's trying to find that, work-life balance that everyone searches for. And I think corporations, businesses, wherever you are working, they have to catch up with the times as well and be less strict on what they are requiring and realize that if you want good employees, quality people to work for you, that you need to be more flexible as an employer as well.
Yep. I do think employers are being more flexible. I would say there's probably only a handful of clients that I talk to that require you in the office 5 days a week. Truly. And even with those that require you in 5 days a week, there's flexibility with when you come in. So if you come in early or late just to miss some of that rush hour traffic, like companies have definitely adapted to this new norm or to this new lifestyle that the employees are looking for. I do believe that they have. There are, of course, some that haven't, but at some point they will get on board. But for the most part, they have. I think what we hear on the news is maybe swayed for some reason.
All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. Name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
The one thing I would say is resilience, because there have been times where things were not as easy. They're not easy. Like it's tough. It's tough changing careers. It's tough, being a single mom, and it's not easy. But the one thing that I learned, probably more important than anything, is to just be resilient and to just keep doing it. Just keep doing what you're doing and just keep seeing the bigger picture.
Would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change to your best friend?
Yes, I absolutely would. Actually, this has been a very recent situation that I'm in. My best friend, we've been best friends since grammar school, actually. She received her master's a couple years ago. She actually had a baby, though, less than a year ago. And with her new position after her master's, she's been out of the house a lot more than what she thought she was going to be. She's been taking work home a little bit. And so she's been deciding, what to do. So part of her is thinking, did I just waste my time? I was like, no, absolutely not. Do what you need to do to make yourself happy and your family happy. So she actually resigned the end of April from her position and is opening up a daycare in her house.
Wow.
So it's incredible, which will allow her to be at home, with her family, but also this is what she was meant to do. This is literally what her whole life was meant for, is to just lead a daycare. She's amazing with kids, every age, every different situation a child's in. Like she needs to be there for that person. It's actually been really exciting seeing her go through this process, but it was a very tough decision for her because she just worked really hard on this. And which to me, everything you just did, it's going to help you be this business owner and take care of all these different types of kids. But in her mind, she's thinking, but I'm giving this up. But you're not giving it up. To answer your question, absolutely.
you're right. Everything that you do leads you to where you are now. So that master's, even if she never ends up using it, that was a catalyst to get her to opening this daycare. I have a few credits left on my master's because I thought that I wanted to go into education. I did not want to go into education. I decided to open my own business. So as I'm paying off those loans, I realized with a smile that led me to opening a business that teaches children STEM education. So it's all
exactly. You're still using it. Everything you learned in those classes, you're still using day to day.
And it's just these little life steps that kind of open your eyes and open doors to new things. So always, those skills that you have, you can always go back to. Absolutely. I'm excited for your friend. I'm excited for her.
Thank you. I am too. I'm so happy for her.
So question number 3, what is one piece of advice that you would give someone trying to start a second act?
To not be so hard on yourself. When I first made this transition, it was entirely new. I wasn't used to picking up the phone and talking to people, calling people randomly. And in the beginning, it was hard. And I would say, oh, I didn't meet my goal for the day, or I didn't meet, X, Y, and Z. I didn't achieve that set. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to have some failures in the beginning, and it's the only way you're going to learn. But to just not be so hard on yourself, and just know that you're in the right spot. You made the right decision, and you're going to be successful. You just have to keep doing it and keep practicing, and you're going to do better. But being hard on yourself, like, that's always been a problem that I've had. You have to remember not to be that. Like, it is okay. And when you need help, ask for help, especially if it's something new, because you're not supposed to know everything. It's the only way you're going to learn, and you're going to continue growing. But that would be my biggest piece of advice, is just not be hard on yourself.
Easier said than done, but it can be done.
It definitely is easier said than done.
What does the next chapter look like for you?
The next chapter is working with Lion Search Group, growing this region, hiring individuals, and then just, keep growing, and just kind of growing this entire area. And then who knows where it'll end up.
Where can our audience connect with you?
I am on LinkedIn. That is where I post most of my professional information. So I would say LinkedIn is the best source for me.
And if some of our listeners are interested, if they're in the finance accounting world and they're looking for a position, should they reach out to you?
Definitely have them call me or email me, LinkedIn me. But yeah, please have them reach out to me. Absolutely.
Tricia, I just want to thank you for sharing your story and for giving your expertise on what the job market really is like and how recruiting works, and giving our listeners some other options as they're on their journey to find their second act and what will make them happy.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited that I was able to share my story with you and to all your listeners. I really appreciate everything that you're doing for all the moms and all the people out there that want a second act.
Oh, thank you very much. I will be talking to you very soon. Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you.
My special thanks to Tricia for sharing her story and for giving us some insight into how working with a recruiter may be a benefit you didn't even know you needed. Recruiters are in the know of jobs that are available, companies that may be a match for you, and the right recruiter can take some time to get to know you and what you're looking for. This was such valuable information that we have yet to discuss on the podcast, so I hope you got some tidbits of advice to think about. To connect with Tricia, you can reach out to her on LinkedIn. She is Patricia DiMaria Shaffer, and her company is Lions Search Group. Thanks for listening. I'm looking forward to next time, my friends. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, recommend a guest with a great story, and learn more about us, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if you're enjoying our time together, please leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Reviews only take a few moments, and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I'm Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.